You may wonder why I'm featuring the iconic Led Zeppelin song Stairway to Heaven and other rock and blues on this channel. I grew up listening to these songs because for my generation, they were anthems of rebellion, and people my age will know what I'm talking about. It gave us a sense of belonging. But later, I realized that they meant a lot more than that. They emerged from the world of rock and blues music and were not written as hymns or devotional songs, God forbid, but they grapple with many of the same questions that mystics and seekers have asked throughout history. Questions about meaning, transcendence, mortality, awakening, and the mysterious longing that seemed to live in the heart of being human. So for now, we're staying in the world of rock and roll. And as we shall discover, sometimes the sacred can be found in the most unexpected places, even in the sound of an electric guitar. There are songs we enjoy, there are songs we remember, and there are songs that somehow become part of us. Songs that arrive at a certain moment in our lives and quietly take up residence in our soul. Songs that always stay with us. When I was younger, I didn't always understand the songs that moved me the most. I know they stirred something inside me. I know they carried a sense of mystery, but I couldn't quite explain why. Years later, after wandering through philosophy, Gnosticism, mysticism, and all the winding paths that we eventually walk through, I began to realize something. Many of the songs that shaped my inherent self weren't really about romance, rebellion, or entertainment at all. They were spiritual songs. Not religious songs, spiritual songs, songs about longing, awakening, transcendence, the search for something beyond the visible world. And there were rock music and there were blues. And I would like to share a few of them with you. Not as a music critic, not as an expert, just as a fellow traveler on the road. And perhaps you will hear echoes of your own journey in them. Let's begin with the obvious one, Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. I'm sure most of you would have listened to this and still do. Released in 1971, it was written by Jimmy Page and Robert Plant and became one of the most discussed songs in rock history. For many people, it's simply a classic rock anthem. But every time I listen to it, I hear a spiritual allegory. There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold. Think about it. How many of us have spent years chasing glitter, success, recognition, security, answers, only to discover that none of them can buy what the soul truly seeks? The song's title itself is so fascinating. A stairway, not an elevator, not a shortcut, a stairway, one step at a time. The journey towards enlightenment, awakening, or union with the divine is gradual. It unfolds step by step. The song seems to suggest that heaven isn't merely a destination somewhere beyond the clouds. It's a state of consciousness, a way of seeing, a way of being. And the idea stayed with me for decades. Another song that profoundly affected me was Into the Mystic by Van Morrison. Van Morrison has always struck me as one of rock's greatest mystics. I've done a separate episode on Van Morrison, you could check it up. His songs often feel less like compositions and more like prayers. Into the Mystic appeared in his 1970 album Moondance. The song speaks of sailing, of foghorns, of distant shores. Yet every time I hear it, I think of the soul setting sail towards mystery. There is a line, I want to rock your gypsy soul. What a beautiful phrase. A gypsy soul, restless, searching. drawn towards horizons that can never quite be reached. I think many of us who find ourselves in spiritual paths recognize that feeling, the yearning for something beyond the ordinary, the call of the unknown. For me, into the mystic isn't about travel. It's about surrender, and that's how Van Morrison meant it. Allowing the current of life to carry us to its deeper waters. And then there is Bob Dylan. If Van Morrison is the mystic poet, Bob Dylan is the wandering prophet. Throughout his career, throughout his long career, he's still going strong. Dylan has wrestled with God, destiny, justice, mortality, and meaning. The songs that speak most powerfully to me is Every Grain of Sand. Not a very popular song, not one of his big hits, but a song rich with meaning. The title itself comes from William Blake's vision of seeing eternity in a grain of sand. Dylan looks at the brokenness of the world and the brokenness within himself. Yet beneath it all, he senses an underlying presence, a hidden intelligence, a sacred order. Every grain of sand, not some grains, every grain. The mystics have always taught that the divine is not somewhere else, it's everywhere, in every leaf, every stone, every breath, every grain of sand. And when I first heard that song, I couldn't fully grasp it. Today, it feels like one of the most deeply Gnostic songs I've ever encountered. The next song that comes to mind is Dust in the Wind by Kansas. It's simple, elegant, devastating. All we are is dust in the wind. Simple, dust in the wind. As a young man, the song felt melancholy. As an older man, it feels liberating. Everything passes, our possessions, ambitions, even our bodies. And the song echoes the Buddha, the Stoics, and almost every wisdom tradition humanity has produced. Yet the message is not despair, the message is freedom. When we stop clinging to what cannot last, we become available to what is eternal. Before I conclude, I want to spend a moment with the blues. The blues is often spoken of as the music of sorrow, hardship, and heartbreak. And it is. But it is also something more. Beneath its simple forms and earthy language lies a deeply mystical current. The blues emerged from a people who had suffered enormously, yet somehow found a way to transform pain into beauty and suffering into wisdom. In that sense, the blues is not unlike the teachings of the great mystics. When I listen to artists like Robert Johnson, Son House, Blind Willie Johnson, or Muddy Waters, I hear more than songs. I hear the conversation between the human soul and the mysteries of existence, the imagery of crossroads, wandering redemption, spirits, angels, rivers, trains, and distant horizons. And of course, whiskey and women runs through the blues like a hidden scripture. The famous crossroads, for example, can be understood not merely as a physical place, but as that moment every seeker encounters, the place where one path ends and another begins. When we are asked to choose, who will we become? And what has always moved me about the blues is its honesty. Unlike many spiritual traditions that seek to raise above suffering, the blues walks directly into it. It sits with pain, sinks to it, and somehow discovers grace within it. In that sense, the blues is profoundly mystical. It teaches that enlightenment is not found by escaping life, but by entering it boldly, fully. The blues singer becomes a pilgrim, carrying both wounds and wisdom, and reminding us that sometimes the deepest spiritual truth arrives not through sermons or scriptures, but through a weathered voice, a slide guitar, and a song sung from the depths of the soul. Think of songs like Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground by Blind Willie Johnson, which many consider one of the most spiritual recordings ever made. Or Hellhound on My Trail by Robert Johnson, which can be interpreted as a mystical struggle between the soul fate and the shadow self. Now, looking back, I realized these songs helped prepare me for the path I would later walk. Long before I explored mysticism, these musicians were already planting seeds in my mind, in my heart. Perhaps that's why these songs endure. They speak of something ancient within us. They remind us that beneath all our differences, we are seekers, pilgrims, travelers, trying to find our way home. And sometimes a 3-minute song can illuminate the path as powerfully as a sacred text. Perhaps that is why these songs remain with us, because they are not merely songs, they are signposts, little lanterns left along the road, inviting us once again to seek the light within. Thank you for listening.